Well, hello, everyone. We are so excited you're with us. And of course, we are talking about how to grow, scale, and exit your business. And I'm here with my co host, John McLaren. John, it's so good to be with you.
Yeah, you too, Chantel. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah. And
Look
so we're
forward to
going to
chatting about business today.
Yeah, let's really just dive in. And I know you constantly are getting questions from people calling us all the time. And I thought we'd kind of just talk about some of the questions that you're getting all the time. And so we can just answer it here together on the show. So let's start right in.
Yeah, I don't. I think it becomes a question sort of after our initial conversation, but a lot of people are surprised, and their question is like, "Why am I in a situation after I've been running this business for years or decades that I have a business that's just not worth as much as I thought it would be?"
Yeah, and I would say, it's really about is the business able to operate without the founder? And a lot of founders, they really feel good about themselves when they're the one solving the customer's problem. Like they're the one fixing things for customers. They're the one when they see revenue going up and profits going up, it feels good for them to be the problem solver. But if the business is becoming more and more dependent on the owner personally, then it's not worth anything to anyone else other than the owner. And so that's really the essence of, is the business sellable and sellable for top dollar? And if you distill it down to its raw of the studs, you are my construction expert. Like I'm
Right.
telling you, John knows everything about construction down to the studs. And coming from an analogy that you and I both, are passionate about, real estate, construction, all of that, you know, can your business succeed and thrive without you doing the work? And like pulling back the layers and saying, if someone wants to buy it, you know, can we get it down to its raw studs and see if the business can thrive without you? And that's really what it
Right.
boils down to.
And I would add to that, the other thing is if you've been so focused on, working in your business that you've also ignored your bookkeeping and accounting.
Mm,
That's the other
so
big one that I
true.
would say can just be a real mess to unravel and show to potential buyers like, here's what the business is worth. The first question anyone's going to ask is, let me see the financials, right? Anyone who wants to buy your business, first question is, let me see the financials. So if you're considering selling, and you know that that part is going to be a nightmare for you. So I think you touched on the first one, and I'm touching on the second one, that are the biggest bottlenecks for especially, a small business, one where the owner is the one who does the operations, is really invested in it. If they've also let the book slip and their everything hinges on their performance, that could be a double challenge, a really
Mm,
double whammy that's hard to get past.
yeah, that's so true.
What would you say is like if you had to coach somebody up on the mindset that's needed, like what are the changes that they need to make in their business to get it saleable, right? They're the results driver, the problem solver, the chief head honcho, whatever you want to call it. They're the one that everything depends on. What would you say to that person as they prepare to exit?
Yeah, I'll give you an analogy because you and I both have kids, and my son is 15 and my husband's always giving me a hard time. And I'll give you a perfect example. It just happened last night. I made my house man when I say I make it, everyone knows I didn't actually cook it. Our house manager cooked this amazing meal for us, had it ready on the stove. And then my son was like, "Mom, I'll have the Brussels sprouts, I'll have some chicken." And he's like, "I want this," and kind of telling me. And my husband was like, "You're 15. You make your own plate. Your mom doesn't have to do it. Like your mom doesn't need to cut your steak. You're
Right.
you're 15 years old." He gives me a hard time. And the thing is like when you have kids, like you have to realize you're trying to raise them to be able to function without you. And with entrepreneurs in a funny way, it's like the same shift as we make as the kids get older, You don't need to baby every employee anymore, right? It's like you're the role of the entrepreneur, they're the parent of the company. And at some point, you've got to make sure that you're moving along with them and not doing everything for them. You're not wiping their backside anymore, right? And so
Right.
it's the same thing with business is like, you don't have to deal with every difficult customer. You don't have to deal with every vendor. You don't have to do this stuff anymore. You've got to be able to, like I always say, delegate everything but sex in your business. And that's really the next step of what you have to do is raise those people up so that they can function without you. And at the most important job we have as parents is to create happy, successful kids who can thrive independently without us. And that's the same with entrepreneurs is we have to create a business that can thrive without us. And I think it's an ego shift of the mindset that we need to make.
Have you ever asked, God, are you speaking?
What on earth am I here for?
In a world full of noise, opinions, and distractions, He's been trying to reach you. In Tune In, God's Voice, Your Purpose, it answers these questions. Hear God, find freedom, discover your purpose, make a difference. You'll finally learn how to know the difference between God's whisper and your own inner noise, how to reinvent yourself with every new season, and how to answer the question every person asks at some point. What on earth am I here for? If you're ready for clarity, direction, and breakthrough, this book is your guide. Quiet the chaos. Hear Him clearly. Step boldly into your calling. Tune in. God's Voice, Your Purpose.
Right. And I could see that being particularly challenging for the very small business owner, right? The one owner, one employee, and they're the same person kind of thing. And if that person wants to exit their business, I think I think it's a little more difficult to wrap your head around when you're that business owner, but you need to hire someone to teach to do your job and sort of step away. And is the business still profitable when you don't do everything?
Well,
Right.
and
That's when
now
you know
that
you have a business.
Yeah, and now the crazy thing is with I mean, we just helped a business take they had two front end receptionists. We now can make it where you can hire us and we can literally make an AI. So with the phone, it can call. I'm going to show you right now just so you can see, even with our phones. So when you call, I'm going to call our number.
Hi there. It's another happy day at Cancel. This is Jonathan. May I please have your name, email, and phone number in case we get disconnected?
Yes, this is Susie Jones, and my number is 757-419-9999. And my email is susiejones@gmail.com.
Thanks, Susie. It's nice to meet you. How can I help you today?
Yes, I'm looking to sell my business, and I'm not going to keep going, but all of that I just did on the phone with you, that was 100% AI. Now,
And I think you're making a great point. What I said is you got to hire somebody to do your role. And maybe that's not totally true. You either need to hire somebody or you need to implement systems that can take care of, some of those roles for you. And, with AI advancing every day, it can take more and more of those tasks off your plate. And you just showed a great example, receptionist, appointment scheduler,
and it
intake
can make
form,
outbound
filler
calls.
router. Right.
Not
Yeah.
only can it make inbound calls, it can make outbound calls. And not only that, guess what? This person is never sick. This person never calls out. This person never goes on vacation. I mean,
Right.
it's unbelievable. And then I'm not managing that person. I'm not hearing their woes and this is happening, that's happening. I don't have to do any of that. And, being a good boss, there is a lot of culture type things. It's their birthday, take them out to eat, buy them a present. There's so much stuff you have to do for like good culture. I can't even imagine. I go back and think of the hours I've spent pouring into employees and staff, and it's just a lot.
Yeah. And so you're making me imagine this like avatar of a business owner. Let's say that they're in the, sort of boomer age group. The AI thing, everywhere the world is going feels totally out of reach to them. what do
And
you
that's why they
say?
call us, because I can set it up for them. They don't
Yeah,
have to
yeah.
do a
Well,
thing.
I'm setting the pins up and you knock them down, right? So that person really, you don't have to be able to implement this stuff yourself, right? If you want to exit, whoever buys your business is going to want to see this kind of stuff set up. And in addition to selling businesses, we're also, able to help with coaching and getting you to the point where the business is saleable. And part of that is implementing these systems, the ideas, all the things that will get you to a point where if you're in that demographic where this stuff feels totally foreign to you, you're going to have to hire someone to help. And we'd love to be those people.
Yeah, and I think, one of the mistakes that I think people make, it's also a balance, because like, that book by Tim Ferriss where it's like the 4-hour work week, and like some
Yeah, that was
people,
before AI. That was before AI as well.
yeah, and it's a great book, but the problem is that some people want to like start a business, and then 2 weeks later they're like, they read the Tim Ferriss 4-hour work week, and they're like, oh, this business is going to run themselves. I'm going to go off to Sweden and, to Greece and go on a yacht and just enjoy my life. And the problem is people get humbled and they learn how long it takes, because yes, you can get your business there, but it doesn't happen instantly. Now, with AI and what we've created, yes, that is a really good thing. But I think, it does take a little bit of time, but AI has drastically increased that. So I'm going to switch it to you. So in my book, Grow, Scale, and Exit, I talk about 5 levels, and there's basically level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, level 5. And so if we're talking about the levels, obviously we just had a window washing guy come to our house to try to sell us window washing. And so like level 1 would be the guy who's the owner, who he was the owner. He came to our door. He asked us if we wanted our windows clean. And he's also the guy that washes the windows. That's level 1. Then you
Yeah.
go to level 2, level 3, level 4. Level 2 is you do the selling, someone else washes the windows, right?
Yeah.
Level
Right.
3 is, someone else is doing the selling and someone else is doing the window cleaning. And obviously, it just keeps going up. And then level 5 is where you really aren't doing anything. You're just doing basically an hour to a couple hours a week of just kind of managing the whole thing. And that's where you really want to get.
Yeah, an
But
organization of 100 people where you just meet with the top 10 once a week, and that's your total role in the business, right?
yeah. So I'll throw you a question I get all the time, and that is, why do you think that removing the sales hat is the hardest for entrepreneurs? What would you say? Because it's like, a lot of people are like, okay, I can move the admin to someone else. I can move the marketing. I can move the financials. But when it comes to the sales hat, people are like, not wanting to give that role up.
Yeah, I mean, well, I guess that makes me think you've got a couple different type of business owners, right? But the ones who are natural born salespeople, those are the ones that have always been the chief rainmaker, and they have a really hard time giving that up because maybe they've tried a couple of times, right? And for this person, maybe hiring and recruiting is not, maybe not their specialty, right? So they put an ad on Indeed and they got 10 people in, and one seemed good enough. They weren't thrilled with them, but they seemed good enough, and then they plugged them into the sales role, and they weren't nearly as good as the owner, and they gave him a real short leash, maybe 4 weeks before they were like, forget this. I'm the only one that can do this. I'm the best at this. And this is the lifeblood of the business, right? Without sales, there is no business. So this is the piece that I'm a rock star at, and I need to keep doing. And for that type of business owner, that is always the hardest thing to give up. It's always the last thing they give up. And some never give it up. I mean, many, still go to the biggest sales appointments and run that, and that's okay. I mean, you could get almost to level 5 scale and still participate in that if you wanted to. But I would say for that type of person, the one who built the business through sales and that's their specialty, it's a really hard thing to give up because it takes a while before anyone could do it at your level.
Yeah. And I would say one of the things people have a hard time doing is deciding what we want to be when we grow up. And what I mean by that is, for example, I love Cameron Harold. He actually used to be the COO and one of the co-founders of 1-800-GOT-JUNK. And what he has done really well, if you want to think about it, when you have that kind of business, he could have easily said, okay, we already have a crew out there. We have a truck out there. We could also not only pick up junk, but we could also mow the people's, lawns. We could also do this. We could also do that. And one of the things that I see businesses doing all the time is they actually continue to hire more people on, and they basically start putting their hands in different pots because they're like, oh, well, we could make more money doing this. We could add more money to do this. And it's kind of an ego thing, actually, if you think about it, because when you generalize every additional service you offer, you're making your business more dependent on you personally, because every time you have to train someone else on doing it, then it makes it more difficult. So with 1-800-GOT-JUNK, they have a crew that removes junk. He's got trucks on the road. He shows up at the homeowner. He removes their junk. But guess what? He could add on so many other services. He could add lawn mowing to it. He could do window cleaning to it. And I will tell you, if you can stay laser focused on doing that one thing and doing it better than anyone else, those are the businesses that scale the fastest. And that's the hardest thing, because profit, and I know I've done that before. Perfect example. Oh my gosh. When I had a real estate company, we added property management. Okay. Because we were like, oh, we could add property management to this because we were referring out all of our property management. Well, we all know property management is a nightmare, right? So it's like, it then takes it out of that flywheel. Instead of us going boom, 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 we started that property management division. I got rid of it as fast as I could,
Right.
because we all want to make that money fast, but we have to be like Steve Jobs and say no and become great at that one thing. I do this better than anyone else. This is what I'm known for, instead of the shiny distractions, which makes money now, but it doesn't make for a sellable business later. And we've all done it. Every one of us have.
Right. Yeah, it's tempting. It's tempting to, add on that new thing or chase that shiny new object. It can be really challenging to just focus on the one thing that you do really well, because, there's always something
Every
trying to
client.
divide your attention.
Yeah, and the thing with you and me, we do things with such excellence, so they're always going to go. Let's pretend you had a deck company. They would say, "Oh man, you built my deck so amazing. Do you ever consider building my fence?" And it's like, you love the accolades from the client. You love making the customer happy. It makes you feel warm inside. You feel, like, oh, great, I did such a great job. Why I could build a fence. I know how to swing a hammer.
And we have an opening next week. I don't know if I'm going to fill that with any more work. And it's tempting from many different ways.
Yes. And it's like, you just have to remember, Steve Jobs is famous for the quote, nobody ever thought they wanted 1,000 songs in their pocket, yet he created the iPod.
Right.
The predecessor to the iPhone. And so you need to have the vision to say, no, this is the product we can win at. And it takes discipline to be able to say, I'm only doing this. I'm doing this better. And just because you're there with the ladders to clean the windows, like the window guy that came, doesn't mean you have to put up a fence as well, even if you know how to do it. So I've written a book called Fasting to Freedom. It's called The Gift of Fasting. And it really talks about if you want to do longer fasts, deeper fasts, if you're looking for freedom. And then I have about 5 chapters. I've written a book called Tune In God's Voice. We have the book and we have the Bible study. And again, in both of these, there's about 4 chapters all about fasting and how fasting can help you hear God's voice. So you can do the Bible study with friends. You can get a group of people together and do it together, or you can join us on Zoom or get the book and, do it by yourself. So hopefully you enjoy.
Right. And I think, it's interesting to talk about these blue collar type of businesses, like a contracting business, like you were just mentioning, a home builder, painter, guys that wash the windows. And why is a blue collar sort of construction or service based business so much different from like an agency type of business?
Yeah, and I think that it actually has a lot of similarities. I think both of them have a lot of similarities. It's, business is business, all the way around. And I think a lot of times people think, oh, because I'm in blue collar, it's so much different, and it's not. And I will tell you, with AI, the way that AI has gotten things, like us setting up, everyone needs someone to answer the phone, right? So
Yeah.
doesn't matter, like you need someone to answer the phone. So go ahead and start using AI. And with AI, it's starting to really kind of level the playing floor. And one of the things I like to say is you can actually productize a service business. And what I mean by that is there's a company out there called One Day Flooring. Okay. I don't know if you've seen, there's like one day painting, one day flooring,
I've seen
but
that for bathrooms as well.
yeah, one day
Like
bathrooms, one day kitchens. It's like the new thing, but it's a formula, right? So like with the one day painting, there couldn't be anything more commoditized, right? But whoever's doing the one day painting, he's differentiating it in the eyes of the market, and he's developing a formula to say, look, we're going to transform your house in one day. And people want that because they don't want these people in their house, with all the paint, the drop sheets in your house all day, thinking, oh, it's going to take 2 weeks. They have to put the drop sheets all over your furniture. That sounds really compelling. They can come in and do it instead of being your house being out of commission for 2 weeks. In one day, my house is going to be painted. That is the branding you could think about. And it's basically a productized formula of how to do it with one day. So that's really, really good.
Back to the receptionist thing, you talk about one thing that most small businesses get wrong. I mean, how many times have we both come from the real estate world. So as a real estate agent, maybe you get a house that's on a septic system and you need a septic inspector that you don't, you use all the time. And you call a bunch of these mom and pop businesses and no one answers the phone. They don't get back to you for, 48 hours and that sort of thing. I mean, how many companies are dropping the ball and really have no idea what their sales potential is just because they don't have the bandwidth to answer the phone?
Yeah. And I want to tell people, I want to give people an analogy, because if you think about, I had a guy that came to me and he had a luxury home builders business where he just not cookie cutters. Think, Ryan Homes, how Ryan Homes, everything is like cookie cutter. The reason why they can scale and grow is because every house basically looks the same. You can choose A or B, and sometimes they'll give you choice A, B, or C.
They buy those materials in serious bulk.
Yeah. So it's like, if you think about that, those companies, you can't build a scalable business that is going to be a luxury business like that. You can't do it. And if that's the business you want to be in, that's fine. But we're going to come in and say, that's not a scalable business because you can't give people 75 different choices of hardwood for them to pick. You can't have a very high-end custom home building company that's going to scale. You want to scale it, it's got to be Ryan Homes where everything is cookie cutter. So that's the other thing to think about, that we come in and look at your business and go, with the way that you have it right now, we can't scale it. We've got to make some changes on what your business is going to be. Let's kind of switch gears and talk about what would be some of the things that you're seeing that, people have this false assumption that their business is going to be worth a bunch. And, you find out too late in some of those areas. When an acquirer looks at your business, they basically are going to write you 2 checks. The first check is the one we think about the most. That's the check to acquire your business. But the second one they write is they need to have working capital, which is that fancy word to kind of say like, okay, if this company takes, $200,000 a month to run it, they've got to have at least, 3 to 6 months, hopefully 6 months worth of working capital to get paid. What would you say is the biggest thing that people are doing wrong as far as the cash flow things of the cash flow that you see them getting wrong?
Well, it's really funny. I had a conversation like that recently with someone that was looking to acquire a business, and they weren't real experienced at it, but they wanted to buy their first business, and they were surprised that the business's cash in their bank account didn't convey with the sale, right? So, you're going to get the business, you're going to get the assets of the business. Like if it's a construction company, maybe the bulldozers and the dump trucks and the hard assets that you need to work the business, but whatever's in the business's bank account will go down to zero and will leave with the owner. And you're absolutely right that you buy a business for $2 million and that business, has, what, 40,000 a month in expenses. You need to fill the bank account with $500,000 or whatever after you have bought the business for $2 million. So that's one of the big things I think that people who are looking to buy a business maybe don't consider is how much money it will take to put in the capital reserves right from the beginning, in addition to what they purchase it for. And if they're getting SBA financing or something like that, the financier is not going to purchase the business for 150% of the sales price to fill your capital reserves, your bank account, right? So, you're going to need to prepare before you purchase a business. And sometimes I've even seen sellers weren't aware of that money would come with them. So that ends up being a big surprise to them, that like, okay, all that I've grown in the business banking account gets to come with me in addition to the sales price. So that may be a misconception that some people have.
Yeah, that's so good. Well, we are running out of time, but I do want to get people to think about, when they think about, is this the time to sell your business? And I think that for me, the sale of your business, you want to create enough liquid wealth. Obviously the goal is to get FU money. That's what my husband always likes to say. Like, if you get a business up to the place to give you enough money that you would never have to work, you can choose to work, but you would never have to work. I talk about that in the book. I call it FU money. But you also have to ask yourself, do I have the bandwidth to take this to the next level or not? Because I think you sometimes get to a place where you just go, this particular business. I have a friend who actually had a car business where he was repairing cars. And we went out to dinner one night and he was like, I'm done. He was like, I can't do this business anymore. Doesn't mean that I don't want to work anymore, but I'm so burnt out on this particular business. I can't do this business anymore. And you don't want to sell it at that point, because you want to try to sell it before you get to that point, when you're starting to get to the place where, because once you get to that point, you're like, I don't care. Just get it off my hands.
I think that a lot of small business owners, especially the ones who are doing everything in their business, that's the point when they go to sell it. I mean, they've had enough for years already. They've been at their meltdown point for years, and they swallowed it, and they kept churning and kept going on and kept thinking things would change. And the time that they call us to sell is what you're saying, when they just can't take another second of it, and that is too late. I totally agree.
Yeah. Well, I will say this also, that success means nothing without peace. And so we want to help you build both. And as you know, we're both entrepreneurs. We've been there. We want to help you do the same. And so our ultimate goal is always to get you to grow your business, scale it, and then eventually at some point exit it. And so we have a 90-day exit ready coaching plan that we have. If you go to canzel.com, we have this 90-day exit ready program. We also have a ton of free things on our website. If you go to canzel.com, we have 7 steps to grow, scale, and exit strategy workbook. You can get that completely free. You can purchase one of my books right here, and we've got some free stuff for you to kind of get it. We hope that you found a lot of value in this. But we love to pour into you, and we love to kind of, hopefully you got tons of value out of today. John, thanks for being with us today. It's always getting so much knowledge. Thanks so much for being with us, you guys, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye for now.